Greetings from the Jazz Cloud. I'm Richie Zellen, and I want to welcome you to the Jazz Guitar Channel, where today I bring you the second in a two-part series on walking bass lines that swing. For those of you that didn't have the opportunity to watch the first part, I covered the 1-6-2-5 major progression, which is commonly associated with rhythm changes as the vehicle to learn the concept, that is. In this second part, I am covering walking bass lines over minor chord progressions. And again, I am using the 1-6-2-5 progression. In major, it's usually 1 major 7, 6 minor 7, 2 minor 7, and 5-7. In minor, it's 1 minor 7, 6 minor 7 flat 5, 2 minor 7 flat 5, and the 5-7 has a flat 9. And if you're wondering where this progression is used, let me give you a few brief examples. Summertime? How about Lullaby of Birdland? How about Alone Together? How about Softly as in a Morning Sunrise? Before I begin to teach you each variety, I want to briefly go over 3 tips that I shared in the first part that I recommend that you observe so that your original walking bass lines sound better. And I recommend that you go back and watch the first part if you want the details, because this is just a very quick summary. Number 1, always play the root on the first downbeat of every chord change. Number 2, always play the root either on the 6th or 5th string. And number 3, use smooth voice leading at the point of chord transition. So let's begin by examining our first example. In both measures, we have the chord roots played on beats 1 and 3, which are the downbeats. Beats 2 and 4 are the upbeats and are occupied by approach notes, which we solve by stepwise motion to each root. And this is smooth voice leading in action. Other than that, the first example is based on an ascending line starting on the 6th string. Here's example 1 with the bass only. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here it is with bass and chords. I want to introduce some 8th notes in the bass for the approaches, and I also want to use some ghost notes or skips to emulate a real bass. You'll notice that the ghost notes are in parentheses here. Listen to the bass line. And here's example number 2, bass only. 1, 2, 3, 4. And for those of you that haven't had a chance to watch the first part of this series, I'm doing what we often call ghost notes, or sometimes we call them skips here, where we mute the 2nd 8th note, and this is done by simply lifting our finger up on the string and just gently muting the string. Here's example 2 with bass and chords. In example 3, I now introduce some 8th note triplets in the bass for the approaches. Here's example number 3, bass only. 3, 4. Here's example 3, bass and chords. In example 4, I am going to play a descending walking bass line on the 6th string. Here's example number 4, bass only. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's example number 4 with bass and chords. Before I proceed, I want you to know that you can download a special study package for this lesson from my website, which includes a PDF with notation and tab for all 8 examples in this video, plus the additional 8 for major tonalities, which I demonstrated in part 1 of this series. Included are also 2 MP3s with all the examples and 2 band-in-a-box files for those who have the software. And all of this is available for immediate download on my website, jazzguitar.richiezellen.com. In example 5, I want to show you a walking bass line, this time starting on the 5th string and ascending up the fretboard. Most important of all, I want to again introduce the use of my favorite walking bass line technique to emulate an upright bass. And it consists of playing a pull-off to an open string and muting it by playing the next note in the line. And like I mentioned in part 1, this works better at faster tempos because you hardly hear the open string and it sometimes sounds like a ghost note, or what some like to call a skip. And notice that I always do it on the upbeat quarter notes of beats 2 and 4. I'm also combining this technique with a regular muted ghost note concept I've been using previously. Here's example number 5, bass only. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, for those who haven't watched part 1 of this video, I explained this technique, which consists of pulling off on the bass note to an open string and then muting it with the next note. So So here's example number 5 with bass and chords. In example 6, I'm again starting the bass line on the 5th string and ascending up the fretboard. Again, I'm also using the pull-offs and muted ghost notes. Here's example number 6, bass only. Here's example number 6, bass and chords. Now I want to show you the 1-6-2-5 progression over 4 measures. Notice that in this instance, each chord takes up a whole measure instead of half a measure. This means we have to occupy the second half of each measure with an inversion of the original chord. Here's example number 7, bass only. Here's example number 7, bass and chords. For example 8, I'm going to use all the resources I employed in the previous example and simply give you a slightly different variation. Here's example 8, bass only. So that concludes our 2-part series on walking bass lines that swing. As usual, I really appreciate your comments and welcome your questions. And if you enjoyed this lesson and haven't subscribed yet, please take a second to do so, and don't forget to click on the bell notification icon so you will be notified of my upcoming lessons. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, peace be with you. Stay safe.